r/AskReddit. What is something you know because of your profession, which you believe everyone should know to make their lives better, easier, or healthier? Be interested, not interesting. I used to work in film and picked up a lot of acting tips used by industry professionals. One of the biggest lessons you learn in acting is when you're in a scene, don't try to show up the other person or look cool or say your lines in the most epic way possible. Instead, you truly listen to the other actor's lines. You notice details about them. You just immerse yourself in the moment and genuinely take it all in and understand it. And just by doing that and feeling the emotions of the scene and responding naturally, accordingly, boom, you've won an Oscar for the most realistic performance, because it is real. But that's also a really good way to live life, really, truly listen to people when they speak. Try to understand them. Notice beautiful little details. Remember what they love and what they hate and what makes them happy. Be invested in the moment. Don't just live your life trying to act cool. The difference between talking to someone and waiting for your turn to talk at them. In my work that's called active listening, i.e. picking up on clues to bring into the conversation later. I'm a civil engineer and I think everyone should know that yellow light time is dictated by the speed limit. For example, if the speed limit is 40 miles per hour, you have 4 seconds of yellow light time. You have 1 second of yellow light time for every 10 miles per hour. If the speed limit is 35 miles per hour, you have 3.5 seconds. Edit, I'm getting this question a lot so I will answer. The 10-second rule is a general rule of thumb. Signals with red light cameras have less yellow light time. Some areas may have shorter traffic lights than this because they aren't functioning properly. In this case it should be reported to your community's public works. Shit, this is a cool one, thanks. Is it also true that after peak hours there are sensors in the ground triggered by a driver's proximity to make the light change from red to green? Yes, it's only in newer roads though. You can tell because it will look like someone cut a square out of the road and then reset it. I work in IT and I can honestly say that by rebooting your device you will fix most of the software-related faults that happen. If that doesn't work, then Googling the symptoms will more than likely give you a fix or avenue for a fix pretty quickly. I was going to comment about Googling, but I'm just gonna add to your comment. I know people joke that my degree is a bachelor's in Googling, but I am constantly amazed at how some people just don't have the ability to search for what they need. I've had to explain to my parents, if you're getting an error, type that in. Add the name of whatever you are using, even if it's just the brand name. Think of as many one-word descriptions as you can. And they still don't get it? Yet, when I find solutions after simply Googling, error message blah for HP whatever or Chinese restaurant downtown wherever N Carter St, I look like a genius. I joke to myself that people's inability to search for things on the internet allows folks to keep their jobs. But knowing how to figure out how to do something by searching online is amazing. 99% of product manuals are online. It's great. Hell, I discovered my 68-year-old grandmother knew how to Google better than most other adults I knew, and I'm very proud of her. To be fair, this is more a lack of interest in trying or flat out refusing to read. Google is so human-friendly you could type a sentence in and get a result. I told my dad, type into Google, word for word, what you just asked me and you'll find an answer. Still struggles to find stuff. Probably because us kids are still young enough to understand these silly internets. If you pay attention to your kids, they'll do better. The fucked up shit you're doing, it is affecting them even if you don't realize it. Their teacher knows this. I listen intently to every story my stepkid tells me and ask questions. I make sure he knows I am interested. For the love of fuck, his video game stories are torture to me, but they are important to him now and I want him to always want to share the important stuff with me. Even more fun, he asks me to sit with him while he plays and then narrates everything I can see on the screen. but he's absolutely thrilled when later I'm asking about a challenge or difficult level he was facing, so it's worth it. I can tell you with confidence that that is probably one of his favorite things to do with you and absolutely loves you immensely for it, and for you talking about it more than just watching him play. I loved when my dad would watch me play a game when I was a child. He even ended up playing Hot Shots Golf by himself and eventually started asking me to play with him. These will be some of my best memories of him for the rest of my days. I definitely have other fond memories, don't get me wrong, but seriously, your kid will look back at these times with great fondness and love. Americans, if you need help navigating a complicated government problem, call your representative at the local, states or federal level. There are staff members standing by whose whole purpose is to do constituent services. A lot of people think their elected officials just sit up in the Capitol but don't realize they have capital and district staff whose whole purpose is to help people navigate through government problems. When I turned 18, I received a letter from the Social Security Administration that told me I owed $52,000 to Social Security because they had determined that my father was not disabled for the last 2 years of his life and they had overpaid him. He spent the last 2 years of his life in the hospital and about 6 months in a coma, and he was apparently not disabled. I spent months trying to solve the problem on my own and was simply jerked around and treated like a criminal by Social Security. Finally, I got the idea to call my congressman and ask for help. Within a few weeks, I ended up getting an apology letter from the Social Security Administration saying they were wrong and I shouldn't have to pay for their mistake. That letter is in my baby book now. So much of this, don't be scared to call them or think it is all so corrupt. Hellscape staffers do their jobs because they genuinely want to help people in their community. This drive to help is stronger the lower you go on the government ladder. Yup, I agree. I am currently working on getting a district rep job. I have had 2 interviews so far and am supposed to meet the member next week for a final interview. I could take on higher paying jobs, but I am going this route because I have a drive to help people in the same way that I was helped. I work at an interstate mountain tunnel in VA. Please, for the love of God, don't stop to take pictures. Yes, it is cool, but stopping like that has caused more accidents than anyone would believe. You work at a tunnel? If you don't mind, what exactly do you do, and how much does it pay? I'm part of the maintenance department. Mostly structural and equipment maintenance. I make around $18/HR, which is decent in this area. I work in local news. Let me tell you, local reporters are hungry for stories. They have quotas to fill and are constantly needing new content. So, if you have a problem, contact your local stations. Anything from a negligent landlord, needing a kidney, crooked contractor, or even an unsolved murder will be expedited because people hate getting negative press. And even if they can't solve your problem, people will usually come out of the woodwork to help if their heartstrings get tugged enough. That might sound cynical, but I've genuinely seen people lives changed for the better because our news did a puff piece on them. I used to have a friend who started a really cool non-profit organization, and I was always stunned by how easy it was for him to get local TV news to cover something he was involved in. I figured he had good connections, but now I'm just thinking he just made random calls and had a good pitch every time. Get a third party to do inspections on homes or rentals before you move instead of who the retail agent or landlord will provide. That third-party inspector will be more honest about things that are faulty in the home rather than one that's contracted with the agency. Also, pay attention to services your town will provide and what community projects they're personally engaged in funding. This will affect your property taxes if you buy a home. Certainly sound advice before buying a home, but I don't see why you'd go through the hassle and expense for a rental. A renter isn't normally liable for the kinds of stuff that you hire an inspector to find. I work in anatomical transplantation. Lungs of marijuana smokers and lungs of cigarette smokers look exactly the same. People who deny the fact that smoking weed isn't as detrimental to your lungs as smoking cigarettes are kidding themselves. If you ingest smoke, your lungs are going to suffer long-term damage. Plain and simple. Edit, just to clarify, some distinctions must be made. If you smoke 2 packs a day, your lungs will have considerable more damage than someone who smokes a joint once every other week. I am referring to habitual smokers with long-term use. I can believe that. I am also sorry for the shitstorm of downvotes that are about to come your way. Saying anything remotely ill about pot on Reddit is a big no-no. r/trees is always listening. Haha. It's fine. I don't care about internet karma. Truth is truth. I see people's lungs almost every day. I work and know their medical background about as extensively as anyone can know it. If people want to downvote uncomfortable realities, then that is on them. Smiley face. Be a strong advocate for your health. Don't be afraid to talk with your doctor when you notice something that feels wrong to you. And don't be afraid to keep bugging people if you feel you aren't being heard. The medical field is full of people and people make mistakes. Also for women, especially those over 40, never skip a year for breast cancer screening, and if you have new symptoms, have it done again. Early detection really is a lifesaver. Yup. My wife's cancer was only diagnosed by the 6th doctor she consulted about her pain. She's now fine, and it's been 6 years. This would not be the case had she stopped at 1 or 2 doctors. Also in healthcare here, I always say to research and advocate for yourself, because it's really not healthcare, it's health services. For real. I was in med lab school, aka the people who run blood tests, urinalysis, etc., last year, and one of my professors straight up told us that she doesn't trust most doctors because she constantly has to explain very basic lab information to them at work, even though lab tests inform 80% of diagnoses. I work in theatrical lighting. It's pricier, but gaff tape is far superior to duct tape. Tears better, sticks better, looks better, doesn't leave that nasty residue when you peel it off something. You can write on it in Sharpie, so it's great for labeling. We use it to label lights, secure cables, basically anything you might need tape for. If you're running cable across the ground, use gaff tape to keep it in place. It's not waterproof, but other than that it's the perfect tape. I love it. Edit, since people are asking, my brand of choice is Pro Gaff, but to be honest I haven't really shopped around. Every theater I've worked for so far has used Pro Gaff, and I've never had a problem with it. Gaff tape is an absolute must to own. Labels, repairs, heck I've even used it to make a strapless bra once cause it leaves no residue and doesn't peel off when it gets wet. At the beginning of the school year my tech director buys bulk of gaff for the year. It's his favorite day, except the recent new hand and wireless mic day. A $70 ozone machine will permanently get rid of most smells in your home with just an hour of use. Pet, smoke, mold, and other smells will be completely removed. However, ozone is toxic to living things, so it cannot be used with people or pets present. Ozone does however have a relatively short half-life, and return of normal use to the room can begin as soon as an hour after the machine has turned off. Hotels often use ozone machines to remove smoke smells when someone smokes in a room. They often have large industrial-size machines that only need to run for 15 minutes or so. The room will be fresh smelling and ready for the next guest with less than an hour turnaround time. Edit, if you get an ozone machine, please read the directions and warnings. There are several differing opinions on when the room can be used again, and I am not an expert, I just happen to know they work and most people don't know about them. So, it fit the topic. I was in a hotel last year, and there was an ozone machine sitting on the counter next to the TV. I was curious what ozone does, so I googled it while I went to take a dump. As I was going in, my SO turned it on. After a few seconds of research, I got to the odor removal stuff, and then the poison stuff, so I yelled at her to turn it off. It was there for the duration of our stay. You'd think housekeeping would keep better tabs on their poison machines. You yell at your GF to turn it off, but she's already passed out. Then you suffocate while desperately trying to speed wipe your ass. I work at a corporate call center for an MLM. Don't sign up for any of those companies. Thanks for the first silver, fellow r/and Timl me r, I presume. I had to Google it. Thought I'd save the others the hassle. MLM equals pyramid schemes. I think. 100% correct. Multi-level marketing. I work in the radio industry. Well, study to work in radio. You know those request shows? Yeah, those aren't real. They pick 1 to 2 requests per hour and then just fill the rest in themselves. None of the War of the Roses or any other BS like that is real either. They're all paid actors. Since Janet Jackson's Super Bowl wardrobe malfunction, the FCC cracked down hard on radio/TV. No radio show can call someone and put them on the air without their permission. Period. Yeah, the station I listen to has a segment called Second Date that is pretty funny but obviously fake. The premise is that someone calls in after a first date but the person won't get back to them. The host calls on their behalf and pretends to be a really good friend to find out why they're avoiding, reveals the setup, and then tries to set them up on another date on the station's dime. My mother refuses to believe it's fake despite me pointing out. 1. The person always answers the phone even though it airs at 6:15 a.m. 2. It's never I just didn't like him, it's always he tried to get me to have sex on a grave or she brought her mom. 3. Despite it airing twice a day, no one we know has ever been on it. And 4. The host uses her real name and the date never recognizes her name or voice as the town's most popular station's DJ. Those results at the top are ads, and the results below the ads are still actively manipulated by people with money. Google has seriously gone downhill these days. I used to be able to type in a few keywords and find anything I wanted, and now it's just full of retailers and nonsense in the top results. I guess that's just how they monetize these types of businesses. If you try to look for anything remotely physical, Google Images is now mostly links to stores instead of an actual set of image results. Like baskets gets you eBay, Amazon, and Pottery Barn listings for baskets, and what those look like. What is under your house counts. Before buying a home, talk to the city about the sewers and water drainage. Very old systems are sometimes still in use, and if the sewers haven't been upgraded in 100 years, you could have a very unpleasant surprise just down the road. Please explain this to me like I'm 5. What kind of unpleasant surprise? Municipal engineer here. Depending on where you are and how old the various systems are, you can be in for all kinds of fun. Let's start with the short term. Plenty of houses built in the first half of the 20th century made all kinds of shortcuts. Sometimes if there was a spring under the foundation, they'd tie the drain into the sewer. Where I am, this is major illegal, and once it's found, you're on the hook to repair it. Also, plenty of homes share sewer connections to the main sewer. The connection is called a tap, and the sewer pipe to your home is the lateral. If 2 laterals connect to one tap, that means you and your neighbor rely on that line. Your neighbor could flush a bucket of golf balls and back up your line. Also, if no easement, a legal agreement for access to repair, exists, the neighbor doesn't have to let you repair it. Finally, if it breaks and has to be repairs, many municipalities will not let you keep using one tap. Part of how much of this is permitted requires counting active taps, so they require each property to have a separate tap. You have to pay money to get a new tap, on top of the money you pay to fix and replace the lateral. Medium-term old sewers fail all the time. In several of the communities I work with, we scramble to keep on top of sewers as they break, but these systems are so old and haphazardly put together, and the communities so poor, they can't keep up. This results in sewer backups. When these happen, they are both major health hazards and can cause significant property damage. This doesn't mean you need to panic, but if the system isn't older, you might ask a plumber about a backflow preventer or a grinder pump to help protect yourself. Long-term water can do amazing damage. If your house was built on a spring without draining, your foundation can fail and condemn the entire house. I've seen yards settle down till there's a multi-foot dip in the front lawn caused by water leaking. If you're near a hill, landslides are a real problem. Water can easily make it worse. On the subject of water lines, I don't work with water companies that often, but be aware of possible lead lines. Lead in your water is dangerous and fixable so long as you know. None of this is meant to panic you. Houses don't topple down or back up with sewage randomly. Keep these things in mind and ask your inspector and local government about it. Most problems can be solved by public works in an hour.